a very exciting guest coming up, somebody I've known for a very long time, Steve Bryerton from the ZoomInfo family, VP of Sales. Steve's going to talk about, building an inside sales team, at ZoomInfo. We all like to flash forward to the success, right? It's you look at Amazon, oh, Jeff Bezos, billionaire, great things, right? A lot of things went wrong in that equation, right? Jeff was working on tables that he took off the door hinges to make tables out of, and the same thing over at ZoomInfo. It wasn't just a flash to fame. There was a story there where, inside sales in the beginning was challenging, and there was a lot of things they had to overcome to be the company that we all know them as today. Steve Bryerton, I appreciate you coming in, and we really are looking forward to this story, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Matt. I'm excited to walk through what's made us successful.
Fantastic.
All right. So what we're going to focus on today, ultimately is sort of that story that Matt had talked about, and thinking about, in an effort to hit your number, one of the biggest sort of best ways to do that in today's world is with a sales development team, an inside sales team. So we're going to walk through the story and what we've done, what's made us successful, and ultimately how we did that, and what we're continually sort of striving for now. Now, I am Steve Bryerton, as Matt mentioned. I've been with the organization for over a decade now. I do lead our new business acquisition team, and have seen sort of every step along the way from, when we were a business that had 10 to 12 total employees, to then growing the sales team to a few reps, to doubling it and tripling it, to the point where we're at now, where we have hundreds of account executives and hundreds plus of sales development reps. So that's the area that we're going to focus on in this session. Now, before we do that, let's get the legal stuff out of the way. We are a publicly traded company, and when we go through this, we're going to give you guys a real view into some of the secret sauce of ZoomInfo. There may contain some forward-looking statements, and so all that I ask, or all that my legal team asks of you, is that any buying decision you make should be made based solely upon information and products that are currently available to our offering. So here's the safe full harbor statement. Now that we've got that out of the way. So for those of you that don't know, I'm not going to focus on a pitch about ZoomInfo here, although building off of what Morgan and Steve and Matt were talking about, ZoomInfo does play a critical role into that go-to-market engine. We're, at the end of the day, we're helping companies of all sizes go to market in a more effective and efficient way. So whether you're a Fortune 1000 company like a DocuSign or a Sodexo, you're a pallet manufacturer in Alabama, or you're a company like a TentCraft that had their sort of market turned upside down as a result of COVID, we're able to help and support your efforts to provide you with the intelligence on your target market, the technology to be able to ultimately engage with them, and then the insights and context to understand not just how to get a hold of this person, but also what to talk about when the timing is right, and what to say. So with that out of the way, let's focus on what we've done to build this SDR motion. So to do this effectively, we need to operate at a real high velocity, highly efficient go-to-market motion. And building that SDR team is integral and critical to that success. So the sort of overarching theme on what we believe in to do this effectively, we are big proponents of finding raw talents, shaping them, molding them, and looking for specific sort of traits and skill sets that will allow them to be successful. A bigger part of that is not just hiring for the right people, but then how do we focus on upskilling and coaching and having a career trajectory and development for ultimately to benefit them in the long term. Now, this formula and sort of these declarative statements on what we believe in has enabled us to do several things. So the first of which can be a challenge in the SDR ranks, is retaining that talent, but also getting productivity out of them really quickly. So we're not looking at a 3-month or a 6-month or a 9-month ramp. We're focused on getting our reps up to speed within weeks and having them bring value to the business. How do we get them to stay well beyond sort of that 1 to 1.5 year timeline that is typically average of the sales reps tenure? And then also, how do we focus on bring them, again, the skills to increase their performance long term, but then also in the role that they're in today, in the lead volume, how do we build a standard wherein we're focused on getting back to people within 90 seconds, which is pretty unheard of for most organizations. So that's our sort of driving force. The way that we do that, though, it starts with data-driven and optimizing and looking at data at every single step of the go-to-market cycle. So where this whole process starts is at the lead and the demand gen team, and how our go-to-market team is structured. So everything, and this is one of the key mistakes that we made early on, is now in very specialized, highly optimized roles. Early stages, we were sort of all over the map. People were doing a little bit of everything. I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But ultimately, when it comes to that sales development team, they are the first line of defense and offense, in that they're the ones that are responding to all of those inbound leads that the demand gen, the marketing team are driving. They are also focused on going outbound and finding great fits. But we break them down into sort of 3 groups, those specialized roles. So we have our inbound SDRs. They are the ones that are fed solely on the hand raisers, those inbound leads. That is their entire focus. They do not go outbound. They don't look for better fits. They are solely focused on responding to those inbound leads. We then have what we call our SWAT team. So the SWAT sales development reps, they are sort of like this middle ground. They are working warm leads who maybe haven't quite filled out the form. They haven't quite raised their hand, but they've maybe attended one of our webinars. They've gone to a show like today, but they didn't fill out the form directly. They've interacted with our content to reach an MQL threshold, so they're aware of us. But again, they haven't actively raised their hand. So they're not quite cold, but they're not quite hot. And then we have our outbound SDRs. So these are the ones that are very targeted in nature. They're leveraging data fed to them through our own data lake, which is powered by ZoomInfo, as well as the data from our CRM, sort of marrying all of those things together. That is sort of the heart and soul of our go-to-market motion. Those 3 teams, inbound, SWAT, outbound, are the ones that are really driving everything into the business. Now, sort of bigger picture, they're feeding our account executives. They're also to drive that new business win. They're working with them directly. They are also a part of our sort of renew the customer expansion and growth. You see that CDR role in the right-hand side there. That is effectively a sales development rep that is focused solely on customer accounts. So we're doing both things there. It's not just about net new. The SDR team also plays a major role in retention, upsell opportunities there. So what this allows us to do, there's a real career trajectory. I'll highlight that here in a few moments. But you can start to see that level of specialization also gives you sort of milestones to hit, to have career advancement. It more so, though, enables you to become really great at one specific skill. So inbound, they're great at fielding those inbound leads. They are capturing the hand raisers. They're booking the meeting. They're handling very basic objections. But they hone and sharpen that skill, and then they move to the SWAT team where it's a little bit of sort of cold warm. Then ultimately you go to outbound. So all of a sudden we're able to become A players and bring their A game at their particular role. Now, how we think about this starts with hiring the right talent. One of the biggest mistakes that we made was we had sort of gut feel hiring. We would go through the interview process. We would, sort of check a few boxes. They felt like they would be good at the role. They sort of gave that sales feeling, but ultimately, as you would hope, sellers sort of sell themselves in an interview, and then we get into the role, they start performing, and ultimately it's not up to the standards. And so we had, a real attrition and churn issue. What we decided to do, and a suggestion for you, is to audit your top sales reps. We started to implement some cognitive behavior as a part of our hiring process. In that initially we were doing, there was what was called a job fit test. Then we moved to a shorter version. We were using Omnia for a while. And now what we rely on is predictive index. So we had all of our top performers and we had all of our sellers take this so that we could get a baseline on the persona and the traits that we were looking for. There is like a intelligent sort of portion of this as well that would also give us a baseline. It's not the end all be all, but again, it's another factor that we found it correlated to success for our business. But that gave us a baseline. It gave us a mold to look for. And now that's constantly a part of the process. If they don't fit that, then they don't progress through the rest of the interview process. So that was a big piece and big win for us to be able to have not just a cognitive assessment, but to have a qualitative assessment as a part of the interview process. Then once we got into the interview, from there, what we realized we needed is somebody that's coachable, somebody that can learn and move, as you saw, through different roles, pick up different skills, and do that quickly. We operate really, really fast. We need people and our employees to be able to keep up and have that same level of drive. So interviewing for coachability becomes a big part of our motion. So one of the things that we do there's a couple of things that we do, but one of them is a pitch prompt. So they give their version of what ZoomInfo does and what they would say to somebody like me, a head of sales, if they got them on the phone. And then I'm not looking for perfection. I'm not looking for greatness. What I'm looking for is they give me that pitch. I offer feedback and some notes, and then we do it again. And if they do the same thing that they just did before, it's not going to be a good fit. They're lacking sort of the coachable and sort of adaptability capabilities that we need. What I'm really looking for is, do they take my notes? Do they take what we offered up in the suggestions? Do they immediately incorporate that into their pitch to start improving it? If they show that, then I can get a good feel on their coachability. So that's really what we've looked for in the hiring process. Now, what all of those things ultimately leads to, and why we're so diligent on the skill set to hire, and then the skill set of specialization, is because we're in a unique position where our marketing team generates more than 10,000 inbound hot leads for us a month. And so I have a really large team now that's handling it. There's more than 70 inbound SDRs that are solely focused on handling those leads with care, with the right sort of content and messaging, but doing it in the most effective manner possible, the fastest manner, I should say. Because when it comes to inbound leads, speed to lead is critical. We're able to get back to those leads within 90 seconds, which is bar none best in class. Although we're not necessarily sort of happy with that, if you will. We are constantly looking to get better. My charter to you guys would be to just try to figure out, how do we take it down from an hour to 30 minutes to 10 minutes? Because every time you do that, the gains are exponential. In one of the things that we've been able to do and focus on is that this doesn't just happen with technology, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm going to get to 90 seconds. I'm going to go buy a lead router system, or I'm going to go buy a calendar system, or I'm going to go buy, this, that, or the other. You have to have the right people in place. There is a real focus on the process, which can't get overlooked. there is also a notion that everybody has to agree that these are the metrics, these are the goal lines, and it doesn't matter anything else. We have to deliver on this 90-second response time. So this again is really focused on the inbound team. And being able to implement this, maintain it, to be able to audit it with repeated execution, this ultimately helps them get better as sellers when we all agree that, hey, a 90-second timeline is the goal. I understand you have to go to the bathroom. That's okay. Just log out of the router. Those things happen. But we wouldn't be able to get to that point if they too also didn't agree that, hey, this is the goal line by which I'm being measured. Now, when you think about this in terms of our overall motion, so we've talked about the inbound team and what they're focused on. Now we start to get into our outbound teams. So we have sort of that SWAT team that I mentioned. That's sort of the middle ground where they go from inbound to SWAT. That's where you see sort of that pooled outbound SDRs, sort of many-to-many group on the bottom left-hand side there. Again, they're following up on people that downloaded white papers, visited our site, haven't agreed to a demo quite yet, but they've been nurtured enough to know who we are. They're just not raising their hands. Then what they're doing is they will move to the outbound role where it's a true outbound. You're just going after good fit accounts that our demand gen and our data lake and our ZoomInfo platform is telling us that we should be in front of now. This becomes really important. Now, in order to start to scale, you have to proactively go out in the market. And this is where you need a process and a team built to be able to do that and go out and sort of do this interruption marketing or interruption selling where you say, hey, I'm Steve from ZoomInfo. Here's what I do. Here's why you should care. Here's how I'm helping people that look just like you. Let's talk. You have to sort of bring that motion into the business because inevitably you'll get to a point where as many inbound leads as we're driving, it's just not enough to hit the growth targets that we've set out in front of ourselves. So this is where we move into that outbound focus. Now, when it comes to this, the pooled outbound, so we've got a pooled group of SDRs that are supporting a pooled group of AEs in a round robin fashion. They are saying going after a good fit set of accounts, and then based on the criteria of the accounts, size and the level of the title and the scoring rank that we have, they see a pooled set of account executives that meet all of those criteria, and then they're feeding them those meetings that fall within their segments. And you can see the account executive segments there are in those 4 tiers, from commercial up to strategic plus, which again is from least experience to most experience. As you start to progress in your outbound career and outbound selling motion, we ultimately, in what the SDRs are striving to hit, is getting to, we call them the gold SDRs. Our SDR teams are color-coded by team. Reaching that gold SDR is sort of the cream of the crop in terms of the sales development function. This is where they get paired one-to-one with our best and highest performing account executives. So this really becomes sort of a mentoree relationship. They're getting paired with the highest performing account executives. They're getting real world experience, sort of hands-on experience about how to manage a pipeline and what a great fit really looks like. These account executives, they tend, because they're the highest performers, they tend to also be a little bit more strict in what meetings they will take. But ultimately, if the SDR has the notion and the AE and the SDRs are both focused on what is our driving force at the end of the day, it's revenue. So there is a component to their compensation that is not just getting paid on the meeting, because an account executive doesn't care if you get paid on a meeting. He cares or she cares about, are you setting me a fit that ultimately we can close and we can drive revenue from? So that becomes really important as well as a part of that learning process and that hands-on experience, that there will be a little tension on, hey, why didn't you take this meeting, or why did you decline this meeting? And the account executive says, because I did a little homework, that is not a good fit account. Here are the reasons why we won't, at the end of the day, be able to win this business. And that really begins to train their way of thinking. This also gives them visibility into how to manage a pipeline, how to run a demo, how to overcome the most difficult objections, how to get multi-threaded within your accounts, how to go out and find other people and tell them a different story, right? Hey, we help sales, but I also can help marketing. I also can help, finance and operations with our data and intelligence. So they work on expanding the repertoire of the pitch and the messaging and the story that they're selling. And all of those different day-to-day activities come into play. Now, this allows us to really drive that performance as a team. I talked about earlier what that motion looks like in that career path. Here is a view into sort of rough timelines on what that looks like. So average SDR, they come in into that inbound motion. It's typically sort of first, second job out of college. That's where I said we're hiring for raw talent, but they are up and running within 2 weeks. There's 2-week onboarding, and then they are on the phones, and that's where immediately they're providing value to the business by converting those inbound leads. It tends to be less risky, right? It's people that don't need a whole lot of, you don't have to have every objection landed upon, because they're actively raising their hand and saying, I want to take a look. So that's where they can come in and drive value right away. We then move them to that pooled outbound SDR motion. Again, it's anywhere from sort of typically 4 to 7 months is usually where they're moving into that range. They will then move into the paired one-to-one outbound, that gold team that I talked about. That's typically sort of that 7 to 12 month mark. And at this point, this is where it's not just, hey, your career path is account executive and you're going to be a commercial and then a corporate AE and then a strategic and so on and so forth. This SDR team for us and for our business really is a feeder mechanism for the entire business. We've had SDRs that move into customer success managers. We've had SDRs move into our demand gen team. They handle all of our marketing campaigns, for instance. All of the content. They work closely with our account executives for the different campaigns we're running. They've moved into operations, to product managers, because they are using and living and breathing within ZoomInfo every single day. They have a good handle on what would make a great product for our customers. They move into account managers. So all of those things, they can go anywhere in the business. And that is why hiring and the skill set that we look for is so important. That cognitive assessment that we give with predictive intent index, informally we used Omnia. That scoring on the qualitative assessment and the intelligence portion of it is really important, because what we found is really bright people for our business do really well, but then it also enables them to pick up all of these different skill sets, to become great at something, to take that skill and then move it into their next role, and then keep iterating, and then just to go into all different areas of a business. That is what has sort of enabled us to have them on the phone within 2 weeks talking to an inbound lead, maybe a CEO at a company, all the way to years from now, still being at ZoomInfo, still learning, still improving and growing within their career through these different steps. Now, look, if I start to sort of distill this down into a few different points on what we did wrong, what we have now really made a huge part of our motion. The hiring motion is really important. I've talked a lot about that. The specialized roles is huge. Initially we brought in SDRs. We asked them to respond to inbound leads, but also go outbound. That is very left brain, right brain function, where you're trying to be fast, but then you're trying to be strategic on the other hand, and slow and thoughtful. By specializing, we're able to maximize the skill sets. And then it also gives us a level of structure and milestones to be able to progress the SDRs throughout their career. There is constant training. So not just from our SDR managers and our leadership team and our selling managers and myself, but there is enablement from our enablement team. There's mentorship from the account executives where they're offering that real-time feedback. And then again, we're able to, right from day one, give them a view into what the next 3+ years look like here at ZoomInfo, and what we expect from them at those different milestones. And that enables us to have that level of high growth. But it starts with sort of the culture on what we're focused on, that these motions will drive success, not just for the company, but also for them individually. There is also the ability for us to create a common understanding and be really transparent on what the objectives are based upon your role. I sort of touched on it earlier. When we start to set these targets where, you need to set whatever it is, 20 outbound meetings month in and month out, or the directive for the inbound team is to respond within 90 seconds. Of course, there was a lot of pushback, right? Reps were saying, well, what if I have to go to the bathroom? What if I'm on another call and a lead comes in? Can I just email him or her, right? Like, do I have to pick up the phone? By saying, look, this is a cultural commitment from the top down that we pick up the phone and we call within 90 seconds. And so it's okay to be on another call. It's okay to have to go to the bathroom or to take, your dog for a walk, or to jump on, in today's world, a Zoom meeting for your child that's remote learning. Like, all of those things are okay. Just log out, flip the router off, and then when you come back, you can flip it back on. That way, the whole machine doesn't break down, because while you're gone, we can route the lead to somebody else. But none of that would be possible without sort of that specialized motion. So those are the big things that I think we focus on, and we're sort of coming right up on our time. All of these things lead to demos for our business, and then they lead into wins for the business. And that's ultimately what we're all striving to get to. But it also leads to the ability for us to say, how is the SDR progressing in their career? What's working really well for them? Why is this area perhaps underperforming? How do we tweak, the conversion rate, 1%? How do we get back to leads 30 seconds faster? By being data-driven, by having the metrics, by investing in the right talent, by having those specialized skill sets, it becomes really easy for us to diagnose what might be going really well that we want to double up on, or what is perhaps in need of improvement.
Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Matt.
So, man, I mean, listen, the underlying message that I'm hearing there, right, is the fact that ZoomInfo is doing a great job of finding talent and giving a nice pathway to a career, right? You're not, a lot of people, when they hire SDRs, they forget about the fact that it is a lot. It is definitely a stepping stone, right? We're a career development company, Qualified Meetings is, and you guys are being thoughtful about reps coming in and having this path to success. And, there's a model within ZoomInfo that a lot of people should really start to evaluate and admire, because it's really led you guys to have the kind of success that you have. It's a very interesting story to me.
Yeah, thank you. It is a big part of the motion. The SDR leadership, the rest of the sales leadership, we are really tied at the hip and focused on, like you said, inevitably, hopefully, these SDRs, I view them as like the farm club for the major leagues, but not just for account executives. They're going to go make their mark in all different areas of the business. So it really is a cultural, no matter what we're hiring for, we're sort of looking for these different things so that, we can move the chess pieces around the board to get the most value.
Yeah, it's really awesome too. I think that you're spending that time in the seat as the SDR, which both of us have, right, in earlier stages, and knowing that there's a career that we're after. Some organizations I work with were really intentional about having that path and that career way, that career path to be able to go and accomplish something like that. A lot of them don't, though. And if you look at a resume on a lot of the sales development reps out in the world, there's a 2 to 3 year window in an organization where they come in, they either get bored, it's a pay situation, there's just no pathway, and then they move their way over to other organizations like ours because they're just not getting what they need for from those organizations. So be intentional about that. Think about when you bring somebody in early stages, what does the company have to offer? Yes, you got to come in and do your job, and you got to accelerate and hit your metrics and goals and all those things. But what does your organization have for that career pathway? And I think that everyone is looking for that. Steve, I really, really appreciate it. I've known you for a long time, and everything you've done over there has been amazing. And I can't ever get enough of hearing about what's in the pipeline, because I try to model some of that myself and the way that you guys have gone to market and been successful. So thank you very much. I'm sure the audience really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're really happy to be a part of this session. We love what you guys are doing. So thanks for having us.